once Hollywood makes it cool, it just seems less bad. Can you trust your estate? You're not storing their soul, you're just storing their likeness. Nostalgia can be like basically exploited for any entertainment purposes.
Hey Jamie, what's up?
Hey Destinee, how are you?
Oh, I am bringing you another crazy, did you see this on the internet information piece today. So let me see if you've seen this.
Don't fear the dead, and don't fear me.
Did you see that?
Yeah, it's a shallow ass grave. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Val Kilmer's dead.
Pretty sure Val Kilmer died because it's he won't be in the new Top Gun movie.
No, I don't think he will.
Well, maybe he will.
Unfortunately, he's a very interesting actor, but I know he passed away. Yes.
So we both have backgrounds in television production, and I worked on movie sets. I have a lot of actor friends. I know what things like this are doing to the industry, but yet you study the internet, and my job is marketing. So I think this sits at a crazy intersection of all of our experience.
Yeah. I think recently the term that's been coined or tossed around for this type of production thing is called AI resurrection, which is morbid to say the least. I think you and I mean, we've spent like the last couple of weeks or months at this point kind of talking about the grim nature of this. And one of the things that like really kind of like I know collectively upsets us both is like the whole AI replica thing, which is like using your data to replica a loved one or something like that. So this is it to its final form. I mean, Val Kilmer, from what I understand, to be clear here, is that I know that he never made it to the set. So seeing him in the movie is quite a jarring experience, I think, when you're looking at him, because we're in 2026, which means CGI/AI has come to a point where it recreates at least vividly as somebody who would be like, oh, that looks like Val Kilmer. But it is not Val Kilmer, as far as I could tell. That is his literal likeness. And that is so funny because like we've spent so much time talking about likeness and branding. And now there's a point where it's like, oh, wait, likeness can be like on a hard drive.
Well, it reminds me of when they resurrected Audrey Hepburn for like a chocolate commercial.
Yeah.
Really reminds me of when they did the Tupac hologram, which at the time seemed cool, seemed nostalgic.
Right.
Now that we're in a world that involves AI, though, I mean,
Yeah, I think you're right. When it was like seen, it was novel, right? Like it was very cool. You go to a concert and you get to watch Tupac dance on stage, though he is long dead. But the way they simulated that with the dark screen and the mirror glass and everything was like kind of cool. Like it was genuinely cool. And it wasn't anything he had done before. It was quotes here, original content. So it wasn't it's more of like an immersive experience for an audience member. And it is something that like is neat. But I think now, like, to me, I have complicated feelings about that. I'd love to talk to you about, because it makes me feel kind of torn a bit about what I understand as like an artifact of media versus like its infinite possibilities.
I struggle between like, wow, the possibilities. And there are really cool possibilities. And then flipping it with things like the writers and actors strikes that have been going on because things like this are dangerous, and you know, your likeness is in danger.
Yeah. So I was asked recently about this by Max Knobloch, who is a writer for the outlet Sherwood News, and he wrote this piece about this subject matter, but he wrote it from like, it's fairly business oriented. He writes, it's AI live, like Dead Ringers, which is a great title. Like Dead Ringers is a good one. AI is giving life to the resurrection economy, he writes. And that term I had never heard before. So it was very, very unique in my life experience to be like, a resurrection economy, excuse me. So he wanted to ask me my thoughts, which probably you and I may differ a little bit on them, but he wanted to ask my thoughts on what I considered to be the idea of AI reproductions of living people or dead people. In particular, I think the examples he gave me was like James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones's estate. Now I'm going to bring that in. James Earl Jones's estate allows Jones's voice to be used in any property where Darth Vader requires James Earl Jones's voice, which means currently James Earl Jones, at least his likeness, exists in the Fortnite game as Darth Vader, and has been forced to say the word skibbity toilet all too often in James Earl Jones's voice, which, side note, you should cut that in right here.
Apprentice, are you referring to the skibbity toilet mentioned earlier?
So, it's there. That is interesting because I'm pretty sure, although I'm not a completist, but I'm pretty sure Darth Vader never said it. And then the other examples are, I think there's a service where you could download audiobooks and listen to different famous people read them to you. And like the most popular one is Jerry Garcia, which I think says a lot about the readership people. And then the other one was this Val Kilmer movie, which up until like that trailer, like I didn't really like look at, and it looks just like him because I was like, the weird part about the trailer is that it's a younger Val Kilmer, and like it's not Val Kilmer that was like near his death, who was seen most recently in Top Gun Maverick, you know. So that's pretty unique to me. That makes me somewhat uncomfortable, but it does lean into like my current thoughts on AI. Like, what is AI? How powerful is AI? What does AI do, and what is it doing to us? So that it is a unique moment in our cultural history to like be talking about this.
I mean, Val Kilmer is credited in the credits after the trailer. So I think to take a slightly different take than yours, I think it's kind of cool that we can see younger versions of actors, right? I think about when we saw younger Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian. I think things like that, as a fan, as someone that when I go to watch something beloved like Star Wars, I go to tune out and just be an audience member. And I'm someone that when I watch things like that, I let it consume me so much that I feel a part of the story. And seeing things like that is an incredible experience. It's only if you let yourself go down the rabbit hole of what does this mean and have an existential crisis on it that I try to avoid, because then it ruins that experience for me. But I also think as a marketing person, this is an incredible moment of nostalgia, right? I think especially given the bigger dangers of AI, given the fact that a lot of marketing seems to sound the same because of AI, that people have been flooded with AI slop. Moments like this stand out because it shows the true capability that we're using to slop around. It's like finding a beautiful gemstone in a pig yard full of crap. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yes.
oh, it has the strength and the capabilities to be something really cool.
Mm-hmm.
We're all using it at its lowest denominator. And I think when I take all of that into context is where I struggle with it, because we're obviously searching for something or hearkening back to a different time and searching for something in the past that we're missing right now.
Yeah, I think everything's so overwhelming. And so there's, I mean, nostalgia is such an important part of marketing because it does sell you on an idea of comfort that kind of technically didn't exist, but exists in your memory. And so, yeah, like revisiting, seeing young Luke Skywalker like bust in at the end of The Mandalorian was like kind of nuts. You're right. Like it was cool. And there's part of it that's like, oh, that's a scene that was never able to be produced. So we're able to like recreate that later. And then nostalgia can be like basically exploited for any for entertainment purposes. And I'll be honest, like, yeah, I sort of differ in our perspectives, but I do like when people watch movies immersively. That's what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to fall into the story. You're not supposed to engage in the way that like my brain can't turn off. You're supposed to enjoy that movie, you know? So like if that increases an enjoyment factor, like that makes the medium work, right? Like I guess like I'm talking from like a perspective of like that medium it works on me, but like I have like comfort movies where I watch the same ones over and over again because they're so crazy that like I can only lean into them. But like, I haven't yet really sat down and thought about feeling connected to the AI representation of things. And when I was using the term like the infinite, what I mean is like technically once they're AI, they could do anything. Like you can make them do literally anything. Max was telling me that like there's an AI Haggard like from Harry Potter that you can make him do anything. And he like was trying to stay vague about that because I was like, I don't want to know anymore, please. So there's something about the idea of manipulating a character that is allowed inside of a digital space that isn't. But I guess here's where I kind of like differentiate from that, because I do agree with your perspective on that, and I agree that like nostalgia is part of this. But it brings me to two points. One is like when there's like kind of I don't want to call it an uproar, but there's a kind of an audience backlash in the 1990s when George Lucas decided to use CGI to update the Star Wars films because the technology then existed. Now, George Lucas, you and I both know like his role in this. He helped develop the software known as Avid, the hardware and software known as Avid. So he was one of the first people to lean into digital nonlinear editing. While everybody else was just like, oh, we still have to cut on flatbeds. He was just like, no, if the technology exists, we should use it, which is like such a unique and creative perspective. Like that's a very forward looking perspective, which I appreciate wholly. Seriously, I do. And so when he updated it really didn't bother me because he basically had these very practical miniature explosions that were updated to like space explosions, a little bit more realistic, and ties into the prequels that were being produced at that moment. So it's like, oh, okay, so the aesthetic itself had to be updated. I know. I still have the laser discs that show the original one, laser disc that show the original before the edit. So at least I could go back and look at it. But most anybody cannot find the original explosion.
Yeah, but we're also like, it's George Lucas, and he also kind of ruined the prequel trilogy and like kind of destroyed it, and Disney had to come in and fix it for a little while before then they ruined it in a completely different way.
That's fair. That's a criticism that's easy to use too, is just like, maybe I'm using a poor example here. There's other examples that like make a little bit more sense, but mine is about, I think there's the second part of this is like the consequences of AI resurrection. I don't think it's as damning to the idea of the cool novel effects of like having Audrey Hepburn or like Tupac or like even Val Kilmer in a film. Like that is less problematic for me than people like retconning, people doing like fixing movies that you've already seen by using AI actors to basically make updates. I think that messes with that, not only the uncanny valleyness of like what I would call the aura of an actor not being produced through the digital presence of it, but I think AI does a fairly good simulation of it in context. So like when built in context of the movie, they're not, obviously the actor's not talking to nothing. There's an actor they're speaking to. It's just AI is mapped onto them. I think what I get bothered by is like, do you remember when in the last season of Game of Thrones, which we don't try to speak about that much anymore, there was, I think one of the characters left a Starbucks cup in a shot, and then they're like, oops. And so they just use CG. I don't think it was AI, but they use CG to delete it. But because Game of Thrones is technically a digital file, they just replaced it. They just uploaded the new one and it disappears it. That creates like a weird paranoid, schizophrenic type of like Mandela effect in people's mind, which is like, how do you prove that existed when somebody's deleted the original evidence? And so I think my big worry here, I think, is like, what does this do to the future? What does this do to like people's minds in the future? The example I want to give here is like the Avengers movie Endgame, which, just so you know, I love. Okay, I love the Avengers movies. Okay, so I'm part. I'm not free of any of these criticisms, because like this is like, I love movies too. Okay, and this is one of my like comfort films. Avengers Endgame is getting re-released. It'll be re-released in September, ahead of the Doomsday movie that's coming out this December. And one of the weird things that they're doing is that they're releasing it with brand new footage. Okay, so they're editing a movie that is memorable. And now when you go see the movie in the theater, it will have parts that are new to tie this directly into the Doomsday plot, because Robert Downey Jr. Plays both the role of Tony Stark and now Doctor Doom, but in different universes. I don't know yet, whatever. But now they have to have some sort of connector, which is retconning, okay? Because the whole plot was originally supposed to be about the multiverse with Jonathan Majors, but they switched it. So in a way, it helps companies figure those things out.
Why did they switch it? Because Jonathan Majors done effed up.
Done effed up bad. Yeah, real bad. So Jonathan Majors was convicted of sexual assault, and like that is obviously terrible. And on top of that, now he's like a crazy like right-wing movie character guy. But like that, you can't basically continue a many movie plot with a character like that when Disney owns Marvel. So what they had to do is pivot. And like that's not my problem with that business. It's the fact that when you've done that, now with digital technologies, you have the power to literally retcon, reconstruct the past to match the present. And so those types of things are what I worry about, because when you resurrect one, it gives you the power to resurrect anybody, like if you want to, but then it's also the estate has to make a decision on those things of like, what's the limitation? What can Val Kilmer do and what can't Val Kilmer do? What is he allowed to do? Like if James Earl Jones can say skibbity toilet, can like...
That's a failure on the part of James Earl Jones' estate. Yeah. You know, I mean... A few things, I think, on that front. I love that you think it was, I don't know, as a Marvel fan and as a marketing person, I'm thrilled, because what a power move. One, Marvel has built an entire situation off of the multiverse. They're obviously going through with it because it will make them more money, not necessarily because the audience wants it, which I do think are two different things in this scenario.
100%.
But I also think actors going forward are, when they get these massive movie deals, because why wouldn't you want a superhero contract right now? You would have a ton of residuals. You'd have a ton of opportunities. These superheroes show up in a bunch of different TV shows, movies, you know, look at all the rides at Disney. There are so many ways to make money off of becoming a superhero. But now the downside is, it probably says it in those contracts that your likeness can be repurposed for future use. So then you have to have a ton of trust in your estate, or maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, I'm dead and I don't care. You know, I don't know. Maybe James Earl Jones would have a sense of humor about Skibbity Doo. I don't know.
Skibbity toilet.
Skibbity toilet. I'm sorry. It's just ridiculous. I can't.
And you're right. Maybe that is like the thing, like Val Kilmer obviously doesn't care, you know, but his estate, like, but in this case, he signed on before the film was made. He passed away. He made the agreement. So it's not like it's this, like it was the actor themselves. So is some agency, so to speak, from the person who is resurrected / reproduced in AI spaces. But here's this is my last point for this, is that all of this is to say that if we lean into this and like make it, it's like, first off, you understand like having to store an actor like that means like you're not storing their soul, you're just storing their likeness. And we're also using like a lot of like drinking water to make that happen. You know, so it's kind of like actors drink water, of course they do, but they do it to like make sure that they can like act and sustain themselves. But like when you resurrect an actor in a film like from AI, you're definitely using more resources in a weird way than the actor actually would. even though they're cheaper because they're literally a file. But it's just such a different way of looking at it. I think we're by the coolness factor of this, it like obfuscates the idea that like there's more to it, that as a technological property is weird too. Like the idea that they're owned by a corporation, then like it does change the way that we see like the digital shadow or the digital remnant of a human being. In the end, like there's 11 labs and deepfakes and all these things, like we've been warning about them. And now it's almost like, in my weird cynical way, it's like, oh, once Hollywood makes it cool, it just seems less bad. And you know how I feel about this, because like typically when we look at Val Kilmer, we're thinking about an actor that we've come to love from the past, even though he's done some weird ass work. But we don't think about the ideas of the harms that it does to women when they could be deep faked in those ways too, onto bodies and mapped onto things that may be terrible and pornographic, especially teenage girls or anything. So like this technology has its double sword that is oftentimes like looked at as like cool. And instead of like being cool, it's like, oh, it's actually just burying the horrors.
So do you think we're going to end up living in a world where we're all masking our face so that our identity isn't stolen?
Wow. Great question. I don't know, but that is a really interesting thought about how to avoid the mapping onto your face, or like how to avoid capture or reproduction of yourself. I guess when it comes to 11 labs, in order to clone voice, you need a large amount of voice data. So it's like us doing this. I'm sure we've created, the two of us have created enough data to reproduce ourselves digitally if we needed to. And so we could, if we wanted to, start archiving materials and create this show as AI eventually. It will degrade when it runs out of content, but the more you have, the less degradation it has and the more computing power. So I guess the only question then is like, do you just avoid cameras entirely? Like, I don't know. That's a really fantastic thought question. That is like something that we should continue to consider, not just in terms of privacy, but like your question from before, can you trust your estate? Like, can you trust your kin to not want to profit off your likeness in case you have signed away some part of your potential agreement to your likeness? I don't know. That is interesting. And that's an ongoing one. But I think it's important for like people just to recognize that like sometimes cool is also technology that isn't cool. And like that coolness should be enjoyed in immersive settings, like when you watch movies, but it also like does have implications to a future. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree with it at the end of the day. I mean, I do sit in the cool pool a little bit, and I'm taking a little bit more of a consumer view of it. Because at the end of the day, it works. Nostalgia marketing works. Selling
And
off
to give
of,
you credit, like it's true, you should enjoy movies. You really should.
well, and also immersive marketing nowadays is the way to go. Immersive marketing techniques. Do you remember a few years ago when they did the Westworld experience at South by Southwest? Things like that are taking off in a way that is way more substantial than social media ads, because people want to feel something, and immersive experiences do it better than staring at a video at the end of the day.
100% true.
Well, a little bit of the good and the bad today.
Yeah, agreed.
As always, follow Network Issues on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the TikTok. Subscribe to Jamie's YouTube channel here. Find him on LinkedIn, and we will see you next week.
See you soon.